Alright guys, so I learned a little bit more about these after I ordered them. And one thing is the size of this. They have these newer ones with the digital screen that copies the new FK iron one where the buttons are on the side. And they're more like about 137 millimeters long, where these are like 144, 145, maybe even 150. I don't know. But in perspective, I mean, this is a manageable size machine with a battery on it, and so it's actually taller than that. But I mean, this thing is massive. I mean, like it's really, really large. Let's set this down over here. And I don't know what the size of the real one is because I haven't had one before, and it's been a long time since I actually worked or frequented tattoo shops. So, you know, basically, rotaries weren't even popular when I was doing this. So, but here is your typical wormhole machine next to it. So, if you're thinking about buying one of these, you might want to be careful which one you order because they're not all the same size. Now, I dealt with the Kiss of Dragon company, and they were really, really cool. They informed me what other machines that the batteries interchange with and the grips interchange with and things like that I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure, and I really didn't want to buy another $100 machine to see if the parts would fit. I also saw G. Dickens, or whatever his name is, posted a video recently, and he showed that the particular model that he had that looked like a Flux, and it's kind of a different looking Flux. It looked like the Flux Microbu almost. It had like a different bottom on there. His looked like it was probably from AliExpress, and he showed where the batteries worked on the real one. So I've seen reviews, a couple other guys that look like they're in Northern California or something. There's some tattoo shop dude or whatever, and he's used them for like a year, wore out the buttons, wore out the cam, but I mean, like, he's using them all the time and he loves them. But he also shows you the size difference between the new one and the old one from 3 years ago, and it's like about this much shorter. So the new one is really, really close, and so then there's still ones like this, and then there's other ones that don't say XO on them. There's other ones that don't say Flux on them, and they'll just say hello or something. And if you're okay with that, it's probably good. But he says the batteries on the older ones, at least, don't fit. So I'm not gonna run out and buy an FK irons. I'm not a fanboy, and I think they're fleecing everybody for their money. They're ordering Chinese parts and they're assembling them in the United States, and their machines aren't actually made to the best of their ability for the price that they're charging. Well, I won't get into the click system, but I mean, you guys all know that they don't have the best for that, and that's not something that's hard to implement. I mean, 90% of your Chinese, cheapo machines have a clicker in them. When I first started getting into pens, that was the first thing that bummed me out. I had bought this on recommendation that it was a copy of a Dragon Hawk, and the thing would sit there and move around, and so you basically have to either put a bigger O-ring underneath it or tape it or whatever, because it's going to move around on you and your depth is going to change. So me personally, I think this is a really good shape for a machine here. Let your fingers rest here. Sometimes I work off of the cartridge, but there's certain shapes that I think lend themselves better to tattoo machines. Then again, I'm not out there tattooing for hours like some of these guys are, and they claim that like they want the larger grip because it like their hand clenches or something. I thought that even this 32 millimeter on this Ambition was kind of large, but this one actually is extremely comfortable to me. My fingers really rest into the end of this thing to where it's not going to slip or move. But if you wrap it, then that's going to be different. But I still try to use coil machines for everything. This thing here, you're going to be holding it, quite a bit differently. I think that it's a good design. I just think it's a little bit outlandish. So they just need to tone down the size a little bit. And I bet you the real one is a little more realistic. This is just it's too big. I don't know. I mean, I tattoo with it, no problem. I'm looking at it purely from an aesthetic looks perspective. It's gigantic. It's crazy. It's like the guy said on YouTube, I can't put this in the drawer with the rest of my other machines, so it'll beat them up. I mean, it's fucking huge. And this isn't even my smallest pen that's next to it. It's like, it's ridiculous. So, find one of the newer ones with the other display, and it should be closer to a clone copy of actual real scale. And this one's readily available on Amazon. If you just go on there and search Moteng Moteng rotary tattoo machine, and it should pop up. And you should be able to get the Flux Max version of this. And then there's some other ones that aren't as cloney that say hello on here that look more like a what do you got, a Spectra Flux or whatever. So honestly, I really like it. Otherwise, it works good. I don't know how long it'll work if you use it all the time, but it runs nice. It's got the ramp up feature. So if you're pushing like really big cartridges, I guess, or stiff membrane. A lot of times I use a power supply. So these are, not necessarily going to be my go-to. I'm pretty much always using the power supply just because it gives me a little bit more control. If I had a battery that stepped up in 0.1 increments, then that would be good to go. But this one doesn't do that. You get whole steps. And that's fine because you just adjust your hand speed to whatever the thing's doing. I mean, that's kind of normal. Like, I learned tattooing in prison where we didn't have a whole lot of choices, and whatever the machine ran at, you didn't have a way to easily turn it down, and so you were going to have to accommodate whatever speed that particular motor was running at, and then depending on how you made your cam and all that other stuff, you're just going to have to run with it and make it work, whereas like these kids nowadays, they just go buy something and they complain and piss and moan about it, and they don't learn to adapt with things. They just bitch and moan. So the way I grew up, completely different to what's going on today. And I may not know what the hell I'm talking about all the time, but I've been through a whole hell of a lot more shit than most of these green behind the ears people are. And they don't really have any real world experience. So if you threw them in a prison cell and said, here's a fucking, whatever, figure it out, they wouldn't be able to start tattooing for a while. It would take them a while to figure it out, So some people, you know, are like basically appliance operators, okay? You know, they can't make anything themselves, you know, and they rely on everybody else to make things for them, and, you know, they don't do anything themselves. So that's never really been me. I'm more of a, like, make my own crap and fix my own shit because, you know, I just rather do that. And I want to know how something works and how it's built. And I think that if you have that kind of understanding, you're ahead of the game.